It is good in the summer. It is good in the summer. All right, Jamie, you're good to go?
We're all set up.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming all the way. They came from all the way up by the airport, so 45-minute drive for them.
We found you online.
Good deal.
I love it. I love it. All right, so we'll talk through a few things today. I'm Daphne, by the way. We've been chatting for a while, and I should have told you my name, but, so if you have questions along the way or something like that, just holler out, but otherwise we'll kind of get started and go through here. What we're gonna talk about today, what we want you to walk away with is, the ability to describe typical age-related memory, thinking or behavior changes, recognize the common warning signs of Alzheimer's and dementia, discuss the tips. We're going to talk about approaching someone about memory concerns, because that's kind of a hard topic to broach with people a lot of times. So explain the importance of early detection and benefits of diagnosis. So definitely going to the doctor and getting those baseline tests done, super important. Identify possible tests and assessments for the diagnostic process, and then name the resources available through the Alzheimer's Association to get you those resources that you need. So give you a little bit of example here. So like Mary, she's 73, she's a widow, lives alone, retired teacher. She's always meticulously cared for her home, her daughter, Lydia. Recently been noticing she's not doing the laundry like she used to, junk mail's kind of piling up, old newspapers laying around the house, things like that. So things that not quite, I see you kind of touching this like, so the daughter is the oldest of the two daughters. She's kind of living a few miles away and, sees mom pretty frequently, but then Patricia lives in another state, works long hours and hasn't really been able to see mom as often. But she talks with Mary and Lydia frequently by phone and text messaging. And I think that's just a good conversation to have. I think it's easy when we see each other every day. It becomes normal for some of that. Might we we kind of overlook some of that. But when you haven't seen someone for a while, and then it's the first time you've seen them, and then you can pick up on some of those changes a little bit more so than somebody who sees them every
As we
day.
get older, cognitive problems become more noticeable for almost everybody. And it can vary from person to person. Typically with age, people have trouble coming up with the word they want, right when they want it. They have trouble remembering names, so they don't think quite as quickly. What's more concerning, what might be the beginning of a memory problem, is that people have a lot of trouble coming up with words or names, and it's happening more frequently, and the words or names don't necessarily come to them later. And then they start misplacing things, but not just once in a while, because we all misplace things, but more often. And it begins to interfere day to day. That should be a warning sign for people that this might be the beginning of a memory problem.
So talking about that a little bit, everybody loses their keys every once in a while. That's normal something, right?
As we get older,
However, when it comes to everyday forgetting medications and forgetting to pay your bills and things like that, that's not so common. So there's definitely some just normal age-related forgetfulness. But we want to look for those signs that are a little bit deeper than that.
Dementia is the umbrella term for an individual's changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning.
Dementia is the
There are
umbrella.
many possible causes of dementia.
Dementia is the umbrella term for more than 100 individuals changes in Dr. Alzheimer described memory, changes in the
marked by
brain,
changes
what
in
we
the
know
blood
and
flow
call
in the
information
blood
about.
vessels. Dementia with Lewy bodies, identified by specific brain changes throughout the brain that includes a buildup of a protein known as alpha-synuclein, and frontal temporal dementia, which is marked by brain cell loss in the front sections of the brain or the frontal lobe. Each type of dementia may have distinct characteristics to cause specific behaviors in the individual, but there is also some overlap in behaviors among the types of dementia. More than 100 years ago, Dr. Alzheimer described specific changes in the brain, what we now call Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disease that's marked by these key changes and impacts memory, thinking, and behavior. The brain has three main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Each one plays a role in how the body functions. Alzheimer's disease causes nerve cells to die, which leads to brain tissue loss and causes loss of function and communication between cells. These changes can cause the symptoms of Alzheimer's, such as memory loss, behavioral issues, problems with thinking, planning, and at the end stage, swallowing.
So lastly, we're going to hear from Ruth Drew. She's the Director of Information and Support Services at the Alzheimer's Association, about kind of really the importance of recognizing the warning signs of Alzheimer's.
It's important to know what the warning signs of Alzheimer's are and to be on the lookout. We know that we change over time, and the warning signs of Alzheimer's can be warning signs of a number of things. But when you see those in yourself or in someone you care about, it's important to check it out, to consult with the doctor, to find out what you're dealing with. Some of the things that can look like Alzheimer's may be other treatable conditions. If it is Alzheimer's, you still want to know as early as possible, because that gives the person and the family time to plan, time to make decisions, and it also gives the person with the disease a voice and allows them to say what they want.
Which is very important. I think whenever we first start talking about memory concerns, we get scared and we don't want to talk about it, right? But it's so important to identify it early. So you have the handout there, the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's. So definitely keep that with you as a tool. Nothing's black and white, but just to kind of touch on those. Memory loss that disrupts your daily life. So like we said, forgetting to take your medications, that impacts your health. Forgetting to pay bills, that definitely impacts home. Challenges in planning or solving problems. Difficulty completing familiar tasks. So something that you've done for 30 years, let's say woodworking, you know how to do that. You've done it, as a hobby for 30 years, but all of a sudden you can't remember how to turn the saw on. Things like that are things to watch for. Confusion with time or place. Again, some of that is just normal aging brain, and every once in a while we forget an appointment. But when it's ongoing and consistent, we really want to bring that to our doctor's attention. Trouble understanding visual images. New problems with words and speaking or writing. I lose my train of thought every once in a while, or I'll meet somebody in the grocery store and I'm like, oh my gosh, who was that? I know. And that happens every once in a while, but when it's consistent, definitely keep note of those. Misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace your steps. Decreased or poor judgment. Withdrawal from work or social activities. That's something important to really watch out for your friends and family. The guys always enjoy being a part of the group. When we start having some concerns about our memory, or we know that we're not remembering things correctly, a lot of times we'll withdraw. So it's definitely a warning sign. Changes in mood and personality. When you get frustrated when you can't remember, right? So a lot of times that'll manifest into some mood changes. What are the possible signs of dementia? So one of the most common signs is obviously forgetting recently learned information. So our short-term memory is affected first. We can remember 50 years ago, but what we ate for dinner 2 nights ago or last night might get hard to recall because of that short-term memory. Others include, like I said, forgetting information, dates, times, asking the same question over and over. You call your daughter on Tuesday and say, what day are you coming for Thanksgiving dinner? And then you call her on Wednesday, what day are you coming for Thanksgiving dinner? It's those repetitive questions over and over. Increasingly relying on memory aids, reminder notes, family reminding you about things. So some of that we want to keep an eye on. What's a typical age-related changes? Sometimes forgetting names, like we said, or appointments, but then remembering them later. So some people may experience changes in their ability to develop and follow a plan or work with name numbers. That might result in trouble following a familiar recipe, or keeping track of your bills, difficulty concentrating and taking much longer to complete tasks that used to were very quick for you to do, but now you really have to concentrate and think through. But when you talk about typical age-related, making occasional errors, that we all do that. And managing finances, household bills, you're still able to do all those things. So those are being, you might forget your water bill for a day or two, but you're gonna remember you have to pay it. That's the difference.
I was probably spending 4 to 5 times more time preparing for something than I did, say, 5 or 10 years ago. Because of I would lose my thought, I'd lose my focus, I'd get anxious, I wouldn't get to sleep. I was thinking of this, that was in my sleep, I was thinking of what I was anxious about, which was what I was trying to remember, which was what I was trying to prepare, which I was trying to do. So it was a really vicious circle of, so I was able to control it a lot, so that people on the wouldn't see things and that there weren't things to be seen. It's what was disturbing me was what effort I had to put into to do the things I used to do more easily.
So people living with dementia, they often have a hard time just doing the most common day-to-day tasks. So you've went to the same store for 30 years and all of a sudden you don't remember how to get to the store. A grocery list, you've made the same recipe for tuna casserole for years, but then all of a sudden you can't remember to write out what you're gonna need to make that casserole. Remembering the rules of a favorite game. Those things are things you really want to flag and pay attention to. I mean, typical age related, that's occasionally needing help to use the settings on your microwave or your remote control, things like that. Those are normal age related memory changes, but
Some people have difficulty with math or with reading in a way that's unusual to them. And once again, this is a change in that person. So for example, we all know somebody who was never able to balance their checkbook, right? So that wouldn't be a warning sign for them. But if somebody who always balanced their checkbook to the penny suddenly was paying bills, the same bill over and over, and not able to balance their finances, well, that would be a sign for them.
and not just it's watching each other, family, friends, them, things out of the normal. You lose track of the date, the seasons, passage of time. It's common for residents to say to their families, I haven't seen you in a month, when their daughter had actually been here 3 days ago. So losing track of time. Having trouble understanding if something's not happening immediately, they forget where they are, how they got there. Typical changes are getting confused about the day of the week because we're retired, right? You don't have to notice Thursday. Exactly, because you're retired. So some of that is normal, but for some people, having vision problems is a sign of dementia. It can kind of lead to some difficulty with your balance, trouble reading, problems judging distance and kind of determining colors and contrasts, things like that can be also a sign of dementia. What's typical age related? It's related to cataracts. I had mine done a year ago, both of them. So that's normal. But some of the others are signs of
Alzheimer's
dementia.
disease is not just a disease of memory. It can affect other things too. It can affect the way that we perceive what we see. So sometimes somebody in the early stages of Alzheimer's might go to the eye doctor because they're having trouble seeing. And in fact, their vision is just fine, but the way they're perceiving what they're seeing may be difficult.
People living with Alzheimer's, they may have trouble following or joining conversations. So when you're visiting with somebody and, it's always been very first with them and all of a sudden they lose their train of thought really easy. Not sure how to, they can't pick up the conversation and continue on. They kind of get lost, repeat themselves a lot. Struggle with vocabulary words, getting the right word for the right meaning or the right feeling. Having trouble naming a familiar object, or they call it something that it's not. So things like that are stuff to watch out for.
The other thing that I've increasingly been struggling with words, which I've dealt with words my entire life, you know, as an avid reader, as a reporter, as a writer. I struggle with them now.
That would be hard. Yeah, it's a fine term. Yeah.
Right. Right. Person with Alzheimer's may be, putting things in unusual places. They'll lose things because they're not able to retrace their steps. You know, usually if I laid down my keys somewhere, I'll be like, okay, I walked in the house, I went to my bedroom to put, you know, and then I can trace it back. But with dementia, you're not able to do that. So, and then a little bit of paranoia comes in. So when you can't find those things, somebody had to have taken them because I couldn't misplace them and not found them. So a lot of times they'll accuse people of taking things, and that may become increasingly more frequent over time. Normal age-related changes, misplacing things, and then being able to retrace your steps and find them.
So some people wonder if, you know, they lose their keys or their glasses or their purse, is that a sign of Alzheimer's? And one thing that I would say about that is for most of us, we might misplace something, but then if we retrace our steps, we can usually find it, we can usually remember. For a person with Alzheimer's, sometimes they're not able to retrace their steps. Sometimes that memory is just gone. And so when they do find their keys next to the phone because they got interrupted by a phone call when they were coming in to set their keys down in an unusual space, so there they are next to the phone. If that happened to you or me, we probably remember, yeah, the phone was ringing when I came in the door, I put down my keys. The person with Alzheimer's might not remember. They might wonder who's moving their keys around because they never put their keys back in the phone. So that's just a little bit of a difference in some of the dynamics of losing things in Alzheimer's.
People living with Alzheimer's experience changes in judgment or decision making. Use poor judgment when dealing with money. See a lot of people that we help give tens of thousands of dollars to different charities or scammers or things like that because they're just not making good judgment calls with their money. They pay less attention to grooming or keeping themselves clean. So somebody that you know is always dressed to the nines and all of a sudden the next time you see them, they're not looking great and it just continues to decline. That can be a possible sign. So definitely want to keep an
We
eye.
had kept my house and all of a sudden, everything was okay with me. It's like, oh, it's a pile, I'm tired. So my dining room table usually looked like it was someone's office because I always would say, I will do it tomorrow. And then my bedroom, as far as clothing, I would just put it in a corner, put it in a chair. And all of this is just, I wouldn't say it looked like I was a pet rat, but really I was. Because I never threw anything away. I always would say, I'll get to it, but I never did get to it. So just the way of my standard of living, it was actually decreasing.
Living with dementia, they're going to experience changes in the ability to hold or follow a conversation. Like I said earlier, they're going to withdraw from their hobbies. They're not going to be as social because they're going to know that something's not quite right, even if they can't put their finger on what it is. So they kind of withdraw into themselves a lot of times. Having trouble keeping up with their favorite team or activity. They've always been a Chiefs fan and all of a sudden they're missing every game and they can't tell you anymore what their record is or who their quarterback is. That's something that might be related to dementia. You know, typical age-related, sometimes you just don't feel up to family anymore. Or the kids get a little too loud, so you're ready to leave a little early. That's normal. But other things are not so much.
One of the most common changes and early on is the person's comfort zone shrinks a little bit. And then that gets worse throughout the course of the illness. So they're less comfortable going out, they're less motivated to do things that were in the past. So there's some change in day-to-day functioning that way. I think people also lose confidence in their cognitive abilities because they may not recognize someone or know their name or find the right word, and they'll feel awkward, and they don't want people to notice that, so they feel more comfortable at home or in situations with family where they're very, very comfortable with that wouldn't concern them. So people tend to withdraw a little bit and be less outgoing. That's can be one of the early signs of Alzheimer's.
So going back to the mood and personality changes, becoming confused, suspicious of others, depressed, feeling anxious, all of those things can kind of be tied back to dementia and Alzheimer's. Getting upset easily at home, with friends, if they're out of their comfort zone, that's another thing is when we're in our home that we've lived in for 30 years and muscle memory tells me, I know the spoons are in the left-hand drawer, kind of take over. But when you're in a new space and all of a sudden you can't navigate it, it becomes overwhelming because you don't know. So that oftentimes is also a good indicator. If you notice any of these signs to any degree in yourself, if someone else, it's important to talk to somebody. So it's a hard conversation to have and not an easy one, but it's very important to take the next step and really take some action. Interpreting the signs and deciding next steps. What does that look like? So going back to previous with Marie and talking about mom, the daughters are starting to talk, did you look at the warning sign, the information? I did, but still don't know, mom's showing a couple signs, but not all the time. So right now the family's just trying to figure it out, right? Conversation. So then it's like, just talk to the doctor, talk to the experts. That's the important part.
Memory is not all or none, especially when there are early symptoms or signs. So on a good day, people might function very well and not really, no one notices there's a memory problem. But on other days, especially if they're tired, then if things become more noticeable. So memory is variable, not all or none. And then there are different types of symptoms that develop for each person. So some people may have trouble with language, may have trouble with organizing themselves, may have trouble navigating while driving, and other people don't have the same symptoms. So you don't have to have every symptom of Alzheimer's to be concerned. And I think the most important thing is determining what has changed from that person's normal level of functioning. And usually people would have a pretty keen sense of, what they can normally do well. And then when either they or the family notice that there has been some change from that usual pattern of functioning, that should be a warning sign to people, but they don't have to check off all the boxes.
So 10 signs that you have there, it's a guide to identify problems that might be related to Alzheimer's. They may have experienced one or multiple signs in varying degrees. So no two people's journey is going to be the same. There's not one thing that's going to happen to you that's going to dictate that you have dementia or Alzheimer's. But it's looking at the whole picture. You notice any of those signs in yourself or someone, again, important to see a doctor. The importance of early detection. Yeah, friends and family often first ones to notice, right? You know the people, know them well. You're going to start noticing those little changes.
It's a very interesting phenomenon that people who have memory problems are often less aware of it than family members or their friends who know them well. One of the reasons for that is our ability to monitor ourselves, which is an important part of brain function, decreases when we start having memory problems. Not in everybody, but commonly, and more than half the people with memory problems. So the person is just not keeping track of the trouble they're having day to day. But the family members are, you know, if they're paying attention, they see, boy, this is starting to happen a lot. And the person's not aware of it. So the family's more aware, and they may talk to their loved one about it. And they say, you know, I've noticed you've been repeating yourself. They say, I'm not repeating myself. And that could either be due to the fact that they're not aware of it, or they may not want to acknowledge it.
Any questions so far about any of that?
I was so adamant about what was happening to Daryl. I wasn't sure, I didn't know, and this wasn't the person that I know. This wasn't, the person, Daryl was my husband was very, he always had to be building or designing or working with his hands. And it was getting to the point where he wasn't, and he was becoming very frustrated when he was forgetting to do things or go places.
One-step approach to memory concerns. So kind of just assess the situation. Step one is going to be what changes in memory, thinking, or behavior do you see? Really kind of start to hone in and pay attention to those. Number two, what else is going on? You know, maybe if you're having some memory issues, but you're also not feeling well, it could be that you have a urinary tract infection or something else. Doesn't always have to be dementia, but go to the doctor. Learn about the signs and benefits for early diagnosis, which is what we're doing today. Has anyone else noticed changes? So talk to other family and friends, you know, get their feedback. And just have a conversation. Who should have the conversation to discuss concerns? So I think that depends on who and how you know the person, right? If it's your spouse, it's a conversation you should have with him or together. If it's a friend or a family friend, maybe talk to their spouse. What is the best time and best place to have the conversation? There's never going to be a best time to tell somebody you're worried about their memory, right? But it's a quiet time and it's a private time. So when you have a minute to sit down and say, I'm just really worried about you. Something seems not quite right. How are you feeling? Things like that. So what will you or the person have, what will you be saying to the person when you have the conversation, just like that? I'm just worried about you. Tell me what's going on. How are you feeling? What can I do? Just be a resource. Step 8, if you're that comfortable with them, offer to go to the doctor with them. Say, hey, you know, we need to get to the bottom of what's going on. Let's go to the doctor. You know, they're the specialists. Let's go find out what they have to say and just, again, be a support. If needed, sometimes when they're resistant, they're like, oh no, I'm fine. I don't need anything. You know, it might take a week, a month, but reapproach, come back and say again, you know, hey, I'm just still really worried. Something doesn't seem right. But always come from a place of concern. And then if you need help, reach out for support. If you're still just worried about your person and they're just resistant, just reach out to some support options here, which is great for the Alzheimer's Association. That's what they're here for. They have great resources to be a support to you as a caregiver, as a friend, or as a person who has concerns about themselves. See a doctor, very first thing you need. I'm so sorry. I have one. I have one.
Well, yeah, I think he finds it quick. Yeah, I put it.
Maybe it's contagious. Most people talk to their concerns about memory, thinking, or behavior with their primary care physician. In some cases, your primary care doctor is going to tell you you might need to go see a specialist, a neurologist. It could be a gerontologist. It could be psychiatrist, psychologist. They'll work together to find out who's the best person to get you to. What are the benefits of early detection? I thought Ruth was going to tell us.
There are a number of benefits in early detection. For one thing, a person is able to have a voice in what happens next. They can make plans. They can live life more on their own terms. They can also make plans for the future, financial plans, care plans. They can let people know what they want, which can be a real gift later on. It also allows time for families to make plans and to make decisions about who can do what and figure out care and those kinds of issues. Some people are interested in clinical trials. Clinical trials allow people to have access to treatments that aren't available yet. And for some people, that can be a really important thing to pursue. Yeah.
So just to recap, pay attention to any changes, thinking, behavior that you notice in either yourself or other people that you, friends and family. If you see those changes that are unusual for the person, take action by having a conversation. Talk about the types of concerns that can be difficult. Consider using that 10-step approach to memory concerns as a guide for your conversation. Number of benefits. I know it's scary, but always early detection is just super important to getting to a doctor and getting the right treatment. A little test our knowledge here. There is currently no way to diagnose Alzheimer's disease. Do you think that's true or do you think that's false? False. There are a number of assessments and tests that make it possible for healthcare professionals to diagnose Alzheimer's with a high degree of certainty. That didn't used to always be the case, but it is now. Possible assessment tests that they could do. Obviously, they use your medical history, your physical exam. They can do some lab tests, mental cognitive status tests. Those are great. And they're great to do even when you don't have any memory concerns, to get a good baseline. To say, okay, this is where I'm at right now. So then year over year, when you go back and they do those tests, you could kind of catch anything that's happening kind of early. So it's important to get those tests done even when you're feeling well and not having any concerns. Do dementia-like symptoms always result in a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or another dementia? So this is going back to the text messages between the daughters about mom. They've been taking her to the doctor. The appointments have been going well. She's handling them okay. Do they think it's really dementia? Guess we won't know until we get a diagnosis, but let's talk to the doctor again.
Someone could have, high blood pressure that's out of control, or they might have a thyroid condition that's not regulated, or diabetes that's not right, or on a medication that actually can cause memory loss. Drinking too much alcohol can make memory worse. So there are a lot of factors that go into cognitive difficulty with aging that some of them can be remedied. And so we want to do everything we can to improve cognitive ability and quality of life.
Not always is it going to be dementia diagnosis just because you have some issues. But it's, again, important to get to the doctor. So the diagnostic experience can vary from person to person. So it can be something other than Alzheimer's or dementia. It can be low sodium. It can be a UTI. Be a lot of things that cause that they can actually medicate, treat, fix, and then the memory improves. So not always dementia or Alzheimer's. There's definitely some misconceptions about the disease, like believing that nothing can be done. It can kind of keep people from wanting to go to the doctor, but that's not always the case now. They definitely have made strides in the last years to give us some medications that are helping to at least stem it off for a while. So she said, I called, but got your voicemail, how'd it go? So they're saying that the doctor said Alzheimer's Association offers free resources. Some even help people live well with the disease. And the Alzheimer's Association has some amazing resources. So the mission of the Alzheimer's Association is leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction, early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. So our vision is a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementias. They're available whenever and wherever you need reliable information. So on the phone.
No.
You're okay.
I don't know. It's a big question.
So they have the 24/7 helpline that you can call.
I've had a couple of phone calls that I've been able to make in to the call center. When I've had a couple of quick questions that I wanted to ask, you know, there's been a couple of nights, 2:00 in the morning, you have questions, you have anxieties, and I was struggling dealing with them, and it's amazing. It was one of the best things I ever did was keeping the call center on my favorites now. Just to know that there's somebody you can call who is aware of what you're going through.
Online, you can always go to alz.org. There's a plethora of information and resources on there. And then there are communities nationwide just like this. So alz.org/CRF for community resources.
When I went to the Alzheimer's Association website, which is alz.org, then I was trying to find out more about what is Alzheimer's, what really is this disease, what is younger onset Alzheimer's, what is dementia, is there a cure, how long has it been, how many people are affected by this, where can I go for resources, where can I go for help, what do I do with this? How can I handle this? Is there more people like me out there? Is there someone that I can talk to if I need to? And there I found the support line that's 24 hours a day. And there I found where I can go for workshops, where I can go and read things and postings that people have done, where I can find out what events is happening at the Alzheimer's Association, where I can see how it's affecting people around the globe.
So ways that you can join the fight. So you can volunteer. Whether you can spend a few hours a week, make a more significant time commitment. You can always consider volunteering with the Alzheimer's Association. They have a ton of opportunities that are available, including a community educator like myself and what I'm doing for joining your local law committee. Advocacy. Become an Alzheimer's Association advocate and speak out on behalf of all the needs and rights of those facing Alzheimer's disease. That's at alzimpact.org. Trial match. That speaks to everyone who can help advance Alzheimer's research by participating in clinical trials. You can get started with those if that's of interest to you at alz.org/trial match. It's a free and easy to use clinical study. They'll kind of match you up with the study that would be best for you. The Walk to End Alzheimer's, it's annually. More than 600 communities participate in the Alzheimer's Association Walk to End Alzheimer's. It's the world's largest fundraiser to fight the disease. And you can register for that to participate in alz.org/walk. And then there's the longest day, the day with the most light, it's the summer solstice. There is funds and awareness for the care, support, and research efforts of Alzheimer's Association through an activity of your choice. So that's alz.org/the longest day. Any questions about any of that?
Are you at the end of your,
At the end of the 10 morning signs.
okay, we're gonna review things,
We can review whatever you want to.
well, whatever you, okay, you were saying the Alzheimer's, the frontal lobe, is that Alzheimer's?
So different